Hi everyone, and welcome to the Excel course guide for intermediate users. Now we recommend that you've either studied the beginner's course or you've read through the course guide for beginners and you feel confident that you can go through each of the beginner's tasks and topics comprehensively. We recommend you do this so that your fundamentals are strong and you don't have any gaps in your knowledge later on that may come back and hurt you in your learning process. However, if you are confident and ready to begin, let's dive into Unit 1, which is filling data in Excel. Now we talked about the fill handle in the beginner's course at a high level. Let's go into it at a little more detail first of all, because we'll talk about what it is doing and what is a series and how Excel figures out what that series is. So, a series is a number of cells highlighted. And filling a series is taking a series and extrapolating it to fill in more cells down the bottom, like that. Now the easiest and quickest way of doing this is using the fill handle. This is effectively using this fill function up here in the home ribbon under editing. So there's a few different options under here. This is what's happening in the background. Excel is either choosing series or flash fill to help it fill the series in. So let's look at a few different examples using the fill handle. So we've got Monday here. So if I click on the little box in the right hand corner, the fill box, and drag this down, what we can see in the bottom right hand corner is Excel is previewing what it thinks the pattern is. So if I drag it down to row 36, Excel is going to stop at Saturday and it's going to fill in the days of the week. Now this only works because Excel is familiar with that pattern. And what about odd numbers? So we've got a series here, 1, 3, and 5. Let's try the same thing by selecting the fill handle button and dragging that down. So as you can see in the preview box, we've got a 7 there. So Excel's picked up the pattern of adding +2 to that series. What about 5 increment? Let's see if that works the same way. Yes, it looks like it is, so +25. What about times? So we can see we're adding 1.5 hours each time. Let's drag that down. Okay, that appears to be working. Alright, what about dates? So this is where it gets a little bit tricky because, as we said before, it requires Excel understanding what the pattern is, and that can have flaws in it, or you may have not provided enough data. Now, in this date series, if I drag this down, how does Excel know if I want to increase the days, the months, or the years? Well, it doesn't. You know what it is, but Excel can't read your mind. So let's see what happens if we drag this down. So it's going to actually add the days first as its priority. But that's not actually what I wanted. What I want is I want to add the months to it. I want to add the months. So let's just press Ctrl Z to undo that. So what we can do is, instead of just doing the quick way, the fill handle, we can actually learn the more sophisticated way and get the exact thing what we want to do. So what I'm going to teach you now is, instead of left clicking the fill handle and dragging it, what I want you to do is right click it and drag it down. So see now that this little menu box has popped up, it's given us some more comprehensive options. We can copy cells, which is just going to put the same thing down the bottom. We can fill series, which is what we did by default. It's filling the series. And we can do it with formatting or without formatting. There's some more detailed options. Okay, because it's a date, it's also given these quick choices down here, which is days, weekdays, months, and years. So what I can do is I can just click months here, and there it's auto-filled. Let me also just make this date look a little bit nicer as well. Okay, so what if I didn't want months? I want to do years. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to drag that down, and I go fill years. Okay. All right, so that was pretty simple. But what I want to show you is something in the background as well, because again, that is also a shortcut for what's really going on in the background. So let's do that again, and we're going to right click this, and we're going to go series. You'll note there's also flash fill, which we'll talk about in a moment, but let's go to series. Let's click on that. So when we chose that shortcut to choose weekday, month, or year, what it was really doing in the background is giving us this option over here. But there's a whole lot other options over here as well. I mean, we can also determine whether the series is in rows or columns, so we can push it out. If we go rows, we can push it out so it goes across this way. We can also change these things, so linear, growth, and step value, which are a little bit more sophisticated, and we're going to talk about that in a moment. But for now, I just wanted to show you what this backend was doing, so you could understand that. So let's go year, and all of a sudden it's increased. So that is series. Now, let's talk about more advanced functions of series, and then we'll move on to flush fill. So, more advanced series, the things we're going to be talking about are linear trend, growth trend, step, and list. Capping, or capped list, I should say. So the first thing is linear trend. So again, we talked about the most basic way of just pulling down the full handle, but let's actually use the series function. So let's choose how far we want to complete this, and we're going to right click. Oops, sorry, we're going to select our original series, I should say, and then right click and drag it down, and then we're going to go series over here. Okay, so we've got a few options in here. The first thing I want to talk about is linear. So you can see that one's already selected, but we can also change this to date, autofill, growth, etc. Now, the next thing I'm going to press is OK. Now, as you can see, it's increased our number by +1 in our series. It hasn't picked up a trend, however. That's because we need to click the trend button. So let's try again. We're going to select our series, right click, drag down, series, and this time we're going to press trend. So previously it was just going, okay, step value, add 1 until we hit the end of the series. But now we're going to say, okay, look for a trend first and then continue that in a linear fashion until the end. So if we do that, we're going to click OK, and now it's going to add +2. What about growth trend? So let's do the same thing and drag this down. So as you can see, well, actually what we're going to do is we're going to start off with these two numbers only because they're exactly the same. So let's drag this down with our right click. We're going to go, instead of linear trend, we're going to go growth trend. I'm going to use this shortcut this time. See what happens. It's now multiplying. And this one would be just adding. So you can see the difference there. So it's a quick way to get multiplications. What about this function, step function? Okay, so I'm going to select just the 8 this time. I'm going to right select, drag down, press series, and then I'm going to go step value. I'm going to change this to 6. I'm not going to put anything in here. Let's see what happens. So now it's going to take the 8, it's going to add 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6. And note this has nothing to do with the 2 because we've just selected the 8. So I could change this to, say, 100, and you'll see that every number after 8 is going to add 100. Now we can use this trick to actually create lists quite effectively, or capped lists. Let's say I want to create a list between 1 and 250. So instead of doing it like this and pressing 1 equals that plus 1 and dragging down forever, especially if I wanted to cap it 1,000 or something like that, you know, or alternatively, another way of doing it is pressing Control, drag down with my mouse, and that also creates a list like that. That's a good way for creating a very quick list of, say, 10 numbers or so, but not for a large list. So for a large list, what I want us to do is go, I'm going to go the slow ways. So I'm going to go fill over here. I'm going to go series, and then I'm going to go step value 1 and stop value 250. So basically what that means, whoop, sorry, I forgot to add in the 1. So what that means is we're going to go fill series columns to make sure it goes down. Our step value is 1, so that's going to be the value we add +1 to, because we want a list of 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. We're going to add in a stop value this time. Basically this means keep doing that, keep adding that step value until you hit whatever's in here. If I press OK now, it's going to create my list down here, and you'll see the last value is 250. And if you're wondering how I did that with my keyboard to get there quickly, it means you haven't watched the beginner's course. And the answer is you press Control down on your keyboard. So that also works across. So if you want to put the numbers across like this in a row, you can do it that way as well. Go fill series, but go to rows this time, and let's go 250 over here, and then we've got the same deal over here, capping out 250. All right, so let's talk about flash fill. Using flash fill. So flash fill is quite similar to these series in that it involves Excel using some assumptions and logic, but it's a little bit more advanced, and I'll show you some applications right now. So in this example, I've got a list of names here, but I actually want to split it out by first name and last name. Now there's a few different ways you can do it using formulas and stuff, but this is probably the quickest way to do it. Now what flash fill involves is creating a few examples, and then Excel will fill in the gaps and figure out what series you're trying to create. So for example, I'm going to type in the first name in this column, and what I want to show down here is the first name of everyone else. So how I'm going to do that is flash fill, and there's a few different ways of doing it. I'm going to keep doing it the same way I was showing you before, which is by right clicking and dragging this down, and then go flash fill. Now Excel's figured out that you want the first word, and it's done that down there. Now there are other ways you can actually pull up the flash fill. You can go to flash fill over here, go to the data tab and press flash fill there as well. But I'm going to keep using the same way, which is right click and drag, but you use whatever method you feel comfortable with. I prefer this method because I don't need to go into a particular tab, plus I can choose other options such as fill series, fill weekdays, etc. So it's just one-stop shop. So I recommend you use the same method. Okay, what about last name as well? So let's go Connell. Whoops, sorry. That's not the right last name. Miller. Okay. So let's do the flash fill now. There we go, flash fill. It's filled out their name. And do the same thing here. So right click, drag down, click flash fill, and all of a sudden it's filled in every single one. So I just recommend you just do a high level check because it does involve some assumptions. So you just got to make sure that Excel understands what it's doing and looks like it has done it correctly here. Okay, so let's do another example here. We actually want to combine the names from two separate names. And again, there are Excel formulas you can do to do this, such as concatenate or just and. I'll put a space in between there. So there's, oh, sorry, equals and. So you can do something like that, or you can do something like that. So there's a few different ways you can do it with formulas, etc. But let's do it with flash fill because that's the topic we're going to be talking about. So let's type it out here. So Gary Miller, like that. And then Excel will go, okay, so he's combined those two words there. So let's do a flash fill now. And as you can see, it's filled in all of those names. Okay, so it also works with email addresses. So if we want to do Gary Miller at outlook.com, if everyone's got the same email address, we should be able to flash fill that as well. So as you can see, it's removed the space, it's added the email address at the end. It also works with proper case as well, so if you want to capitalize all of those words, and again, there's formulas you can use for this, but this is nice and quick. So let's go capitalize Gary Miller. Let's right click that, flash fill, and now all of these have been capitalized. You'll notice that even some of them, which already had a capital at the beginning, have been capitalized in the correct way. You can also do it with initials. Basically any trend that is comparable between the two, Excel can do this for you. Okay, so let's do a different text format. In this case, we're actually doing dates. And as you remember, we had some trouble over here because there was a few different variables that you can choose from. Is it the day, the month, or the year? So let's say we want to extract data from a list. We just want to pull out the year. And instead of using a formula, what we can do is just type 2019, and Excel is going to figure out you're taking the last 4 digits. And there we go, flash fill, it's taken out the year. Perfect. Okay, so I just want to go through an example where Excel's logic is less than perfect. So let's say we want to put W in here because we want to take the last letter over here. What Excel doesn't know is, are you taking the first letter of the word or are you taking the last letter of the word? So this is actually the user's error because it hasn't provided enough examples for Excel to use from. So as you can see, it's assumed that you're using the first letter, which is actually incorrect. So what we need to do is provide more examples. So we're going to go W, M, okay, and that should be enough of an example because Excel will go, oh, no, he's actually talking about that last letter at the end. Okay, so we've talked about everything to do with flash, fill, and series. The only two things that we haven't talked about now is justifying a text series and creating a custom fill list. So the reason the latter one is included is because if you go to the home menu, under the fill menu bar, we've also got this option over here, which is justify. So what I've got over here is some really long text. And instead of resizing the columns or wrapping the text or the other ways that we've talked about in the beginner's Excel course in getting the text in a more readable manner, plus merge and center, which I tell people to avoid because it creates issues with formulas in a page. There is this other workaround which is really neat that you can get text in a readable manner. And basically what you do is you select the range that you want the text to fit in. So this does require some estimation, but let's say we want it to fit in this little square here because I'm going to put a box around it like so, as you can see. What we can do is select the area and then go to Fill, Justify, and now as you can see it perfectly fits in this little box. So you can do it with different shapes as well. So let's say I want one really long one, let's do that. And go Fill, Justify, and as you can see it's just been pushed down onto the next row. So quite a cool handy way of doing it instead of going selecting the text, copy, paste like that so it fits and then deleting the last word and so forth. So it can be a little bit fiddly. Just use the justify function. Okay, so the final thing we're going to be talking about is creating a custom fill list and why this is important for autofill. So you remember before when we had a few days of the week, we could drag this down and it would fill the series. And this works because Excel understands what's next in that series. So whilst for some things it's obvious, for example, we've created a pattern, there was no pattern for this. So Excel knew about this pattern is because it had already been told about it. And it was told about it in custom lists. Now, custom lists are generally used for sorting, which we're not talking about in this chapter, but you can actually access those sorting lists or those custom lists through the sorting feature and actually go custom list, OK, and here it is in here. Now, the other way you can access it is through the File Options Advanced and scroll down and you'll see the custom list. Here it is here, edit custom list under general. So it's right at the bottom of the scroll bar. If you go edit custom list, this is where it actually gives you the opportunity to import lists from cells, which we weren't able to do from that other quicker way of getting to that menu. So as you can see, what there are already is these three letter weekday list entries, the full day list entry, the months, the long months, etc. So Excel already knows what's coming list in this pattern. So, but what we can actually do is we can create our own lists, which is an efficient way of creating an autofill that we'll use again in future. So let's create a custom list. What I've done is I've created a list of Australian cities ranked by importance. Just a joke, don't take it seriously. And then click import. And now all of a sudden we have our list like this. You can also do it by manually typing them out, but that's kind of frustrating. You can add a space in between and then press add once you're done. But we don't want that one, so let's delete that. So now as you can see, our custom list is saved in here. So now, anytime we go Sydney over here, and we pull down the fill handle, it should customize our list in that order. And we can do it from reversed order as well, so we can go Darwin over here and then drag this, oops, sorry, paste this over here and then drag this up, and you can see it's auto-populating based on that list. So that is everything in Unit 1, filling data in Excel. I hope you've learned a lot from this video, and we'll move on to the next one, which is formula referencing.